Why Denmark?
No other city in the world. I've traveled a lot, but Copenhagen has something not many cities, even Stockholm or Oslo or Helsinki, none of the cities can match with Copenhagen.
70 to 75,000 people moved last year, 2024.
My experience why I am in Copenhagen is that Denmark is the America of Scandinavia.
There is a huge debate going on. Is language really a necessity to get into the jobs?
You get an extra gold star if you learn the language. Going to this one class, it gave me so much life, it gave me so much energy. And in the end, in the Shavasana, when you lay down, it's called Dead Man's Pose, everything just felt good. Everything was just, and after a couple of times I started crying. And I was like, oh, where are these tears coming from? Like many good things in life, you cannot really explain it until you experience it. Network and learn the language and be open to change. That would be the three things I would say. I love helping people, and I love people, and I love teaching. So for me, I don't consider it as a job. I consider it as
Part of life.
yeah.
In today's episode, I will be interviewing Zerina. She is an operations manager at a Scandinavian company in Copenhagen, where she oversees financial management, HR functions, and business processes. She is passionate about employee well-being, cultural enhancement, and process optimization. Outside of her professional role, Zerina is dedicated to yoga, running her personal enterprise, Ziko Yoga, where she conducts yin yoga sessions. In the podcast, Zerina and I discuss the following topics. How can yoga help internationals navigate cultural and emotional challenges of living abroad? What mindset shift is key for expats to embrace a transformative lifestyle change? And a quick mental health tip for busy internationals. She also demonstrated Nidra, including sound healing. I personally consider it as a gift to all you listeners out there. Let's start with some quick little introduction about you. Why Denmark and when did you move to Denmark?
Why Denmark? Well, that's a good question. I was on my way to Australia, and one day in high school, we had to decide where to go, and everybody were going somewhere fancy. Some people already had jobs, and I also wanted to go somewhere fancy. So we sat in the library, and I told my friends to say stop. And we had a book with Scandinavian universities, and I chose Denmark. And I told them stop 3-4 times, and I applied. And I got into one of the schools. And my initial thought was Australia. But because Denmark is so close to Malmö is where I'm from, then I thought it was a no-brainer. I could just take the train and I would be in another country. So I tend to say I was on my way to Australia. I ended up in the airport and then I just stayed.
But Malmö is also like not huge of a difference from not much of a difference from Copenhagen, right?
It is.
Is it?
It is the biggest difference.
Wow.
Yes.
Can you put some words onto that?
Even though Malmö is Sweden's biggest city, it's really, really small. It has the small city mentality, and it cannot compare to Copenhagen.
And Copenhagen, what is it? Is it in terms of good or bad, or when you compare with Malmö?
Copenhagen is the capital, so maybe you could say in one way that Malmö is the little brother to or little sister, whatever you would like it. But Malmö doesn't have the same city vibe as Copenhagen. Copenhagen has the vibe of New York, London, Amsterdam. You have all the possibilities. You can go anywhere you'd like. The city is vibrant every day. Even on a Sunday, you can go out, go to the cinema, so many cinemas. So the possibilities are immense in Copenhagen. And that's why I think it's like no other city in the world. I've traveled a lot. But Copenhagen has something not many cities, even Stockholm or Oslo or Helsinki, none of the cities can match with Copenhagen.
Wow. Okay. I'm going to give you some facts with Copenhagen. I'm assuming that you might know this, but it's going to be a lot of information with regards to immigration. There's close to like 70 to 75,000 people moved last year, 2024, primarily because of job from non-European countries. And most of the people who immigrated, they come with families, and there's a big debate going on whether these families or spouses have competencies to find jobs in Denmark. And you have a profile where you are part of you have a career in finance, and you work for a corporation in Scandinavia, in Denmark, but you also chose to pursue your passion within yoga, which is Ziko Yoga. And you kind of try to find a balance with work, full-time work, and also your passion. Now that I assume that you might have experiences working with different cultures, and especially Scandinavian cultures, and you also, I assume, know the language. Let us put aside that part. As a female, having a full-time job and pursuing your dream, is it the same in all Scandinavian countries, or Copenhagen is a bit different?
And that is also the reason why I'm in Copenhagen. I experienced it's much easier to get a job in Denmark than it is in Sweden.
Wow.
Also, it's much easier to get fired in Denmark than it is in Sweden. So it depends on which country. I cannot speak for Norway or Finland, but my experience why I am in Copenhagen is that Denmark is the America of Scandinavia. It's easier to get a job. And I know I've been in this struggle myself between end of 18 until mid 21, that I was struggling to get a job, despite the fact that I had Danish background, the Danish certificates from Danish schools. Even before at 18, I had difficulty getting a job. I cannot hide that. But I think it's about the mindset. And if you are willing to wait, and also when does that wait end? When do you have to say to yourself, okay, I have a dream, but right now I also have bills to pay. So I wasn't, what I think was easiest for me to get a job was that I wasn't afraid of taking just any job. I wasn't waiting for the corporate jobs to hire me, because early on I moved to Copenhagen in 2013, and that's where I bought my apartment too. So when you have something you know you're working for, then you grow up in a way that you say to yourself, I have the mindset of you need to work. And if I work for a short amount of time, I worked as in housekeeping, I worked in back office in a hotel, I worked in room service, because there were a lot of people who didn't want to have those jobs. And I just saw it as money paying my bills.
Fully understand.
And that's why I think I've met a lot of expat women who are in the position that their husbands have a well-paid job in one of the big companies that we know of in Denmark. And they can't get hired despite the fact that they have very good jobs in their countries. But it's also, I asked them also the question, do you want to work? If you are set and your husband's salary can pay for the house in Sydhavn, and they can pay for the car, and they can pay for the living expenses, and you're good, do you need a job?
But depends on how much the person earns, right? For example, I've heard stories about a lot of Indians moving to Denmark. A person with, let's say, a fair amount of salary above the market, is able to find a good accommodation and able to finance with the family of the two kids with the partner, right? But a lot of people don't get that money, which means their wife wants to find an alternative position. Maybe she might not have a job that she intends to, but she could find an odd job with, let's say, less paying salary. But there is a huge debate going on: is language really a necessity to get into the jobs? In your case, I assume that you have backed up with, let's say, language as one of your key skills to sell. But I do understand Copenhagen is also international, so language shouldn't be a huge friction. I don't know if you agree to this or not.
Again, it depends. I think wherever you go, you get an extra gold star if you learn the language. And it's the same in Denmark. Denmark is a small country, and even if you make the effort, I went to school after school in the first 2 years to learn Danish. And even if Danish and Swedish are similar, there are many differences. And you would know yourself when somebody greets you in your own language. You relax. And even if you can come to work and just say godmorgen or hi, tak for mad, which is just basics, then you will get the extra golden key to the heart. And in the big corporations, there are also, I know people, their jobs offer them the possibility to go for courses. But also it depends on how, like, again, what do you want? What are you willing to wait for that high paid English speaking job? Or as one of our mutual friends, she lives outside of Copenhagen in the middle of Denmark, and she started volunteering in a Red Cross store, which didn't get paid. But she said she was able to talk to the people in the community. Her husband has a good job. She's been unemployed for a very, very long time, over a year. In that meantime, she was figuring out what does she want to do. She started her own jewelry business. She learned Danish, and now she's going through a whole different path. And it takes time. It takes time to get established into the society, but it also depends on how willing are you to work for it. So I think the best and easiest way to get a job, if you don't already have something lined up, is to do volunteer work. I did a lot of volunteer work, and in that volunteer work, I learned I learned a lot of people, and I learned the language. So it's easier when you listen to the newspaper. I used to read, it's called BT today, but before it called Metro. So I used to take that newspaper and read it from one end to the other just to see what crazy words could I find. And then when I find that word, I Google it and I translate it, and I'm like, this is interesting. As I forced myself to listen to English, to Danish, I forced myself to listen to Danish news, music in the background. So I have had it every day. And Danish is a really tricky language, and I understand people are just like, no, not for me. And I've had friends who worked for the UN where they don't need Danish. They need French, they need English. So there are possibilities, and that's why I would say Copenhagen is a fairly easy place to live in. Depends on what you want. Because you could, the two girls, they're both from Canada. They were both worked for the UN. They're not living here right now, but when they were, they said, I don't need to learn Danish. I don't want to bother. But again, when you come to an employer and you already come with the mindset of, I don't want to bother.
That's sending a wrong signal to the hiring manager. And I get your point. So you touched upon volunteering, you touched upon options to learn Danish while you do volunteering, and it takes time, let's say, to establish yourself. And so if someone, let's say, takes up a volunteering today, and it takes, let's say, a year or two to get established, to get to know a point where they could read and write and listen and understand. I think it's still ambitious to learn Danish in 2 years. if they don't have a proper goal. Um, do you think now that they acquired language and backed up with some experiences working with Danish organizations, not on the same field of work or expertise, but then working with organizations or people, um, does it help to get the job that they have as an education? For example, there's a lot of engineers from India, and they do, let's say, IT, but they don't usually get hired if they come from a non-IT background, such as finance or HR, and these are departments that are heavily Danish driven, with a lot of, let's say, public sector, for example, finance, banks, they require Danish. Did you face a challenge when you got hired in the organization? I assume that it is a Danish organization, or is it international? I don't know. Maybe walk us through on the journey with the the office that you worked for, or the company. Was it Danish driven organization, or is it English friendly or international? How does it sound?
My experience, and that's the only one I can speak about, is that if you stay in Copenhagen, you probably would never have to learn Danish. But you would on the Friday bar and on the way to the bakery and all these things. But the further you get out of Copenhagen, Danish would be on your priority list, or should be. The companies outside of Copenhagen are more Danish. Again, you're coming from a company that is very international and it's still outside of Copenhagen. So I think it really depends what you want. I have always had the advantage of being hired because I speak Swedish fluently. I grew up in Sweden. I speak English fluently, and I tried my best to speak Danish. And even I allowed people to make fun of me when I spoke Danish. I went to the reason why I came to Denmark was I wanted to study law, and I couldn't get in Sweden. So I signed up for law school, business law, and it was in Danish. And I didn't understand any word of the spoken word in class or what my peers were saying, but I understood the written word.
So you were able to read and write.
And the written, like if you, of course, you're coming from a non-Scandinavian country, it's completely different language. But language is important. And if you really want to move to Denmark and you have time, you have 3 months, you have half a year, if you have a year and you really want to make a big impact, language will get you there. And the language you would consider it as you should consider it as your top 3 if you really want to get ahead.
Message is clear. Language is important.
Yes.
Irrespective if it's Copenhagen or outside Copenhagen, that's always an added advantage, or maybe a criteria, priority. Yeah. Now that you are part of an organization, you still choose to pursue a passion with Ziko Yoga. Let us walk into that side of your life. Why yoga, and how did you end up starting your own enterprise within yoga?
That's a whole different story. Yeah. Long story short, I was 14 and my good friend wanted to do something in high school. And we were a group of 4 or 5 girls, and none of them wanted to do this particular thing because nobody thought it was cool. But I thought that the girl was cool, and I'm always willing to try new things. So I said, I'll go with you. One time I'll go with you. And I really liked it. I really, really liked it. Then I said to myself, give it 10 times. But actually it wasn't probably me. It was my teacher back then. He was trained in India, and his mother was a really good yoga teacher. And it was like a little room in a fitness center back then. It wasn't so popular as it is right now. But that one class just made me feel so many feelings. And I thought, wow, if it was one class that can do this, then I need to come back for the remaining 9 times.
How did
So I
you
got
feel?
hooked.
Yeah, but how did you feel? Was it what sort of emotions that it evoked?
It's unexplainable because as a kid, I'm an only child. I go to school, there are elements in school you don't like, you're questioning your life, you're really wondering, okay, and do I really want to be like my friends? Oh my God, my friends are doing this, my friends are doing that. And then in 1 year, they're off to this. Some people already have their whole life planned out. And I was like, I don't even know what I want to do. And I felt that pressure. I never went to anything after school. So I felt the pressure. There was a lot of pressure. And I went to a good school. I always went to good schools. So you always had a pressure, added pressure of performing. And my parents are Balkans, so they're always pushing me to do better. So there was I felt a lot of pressure. And as a 14-year-old kid, you don't really, it's not cool to talk with your friends about emotions or anything. So I went to this class and I was a little bit like a chubby kid. I always like to eat. And having diabetes as a 7-year-old, they told me you need to exercise, but I hated exercise. So going to this one class, it gave me so much life, it gave me so much energy. And in the end, in the shavasana, when you lay down, it's called dead man's pose, everything just felt good. Everything was just, and after a couple of times I started crying. And I was like, oh, where are these tears coming from? So yeah, like many good things in life, you cannot really explain it until you experience it.
That's profound. But it's also like you still have those memories ever since a child, and that's a long. It happened very long, I guess, and yeah, great. Yeah, that's actually good. It feels that you kind of have it in your subconscious memory.
And that's what I live for. That's to be able to, in 60 minutes or less, because nowadays everything is packed in a schedule. And where I teach now, we only literally have 55 minutes. 5 minutes to set up the room and make sure everybody are breathing. Then in around 20, 30 minutes to loosen them up. And then 20 minutes to get them up. And then 10, 15 minutes to get them down. And 5 minutes to clean the room. So there is a lot that happens, but they don't have to know. They know that they will happen. But my goal is to greet them, relax them, get them into a high, and then get them into a low where they relax. And then when they wake up, I say, that's where I see whatever happened in those 55 minutes, they're a different person than when they walked in. And that's the golden.
Pretty interesting. To recollect, I think we touched upon having the mindset to put yourself outside and try different ways to volunteer as expats and prioritize learning language, which is a no-brainer. It puts you or accelerates your rate of getting hired. And you also touched upon saying is it even really necessary for a spouse to find a job if his partner is earning a decent enough salary?
No, I would say
Okay.
there are some people who have that option.
Okay, yeah, it's an option.
What people do in their marriages, I would never want to mix. I just say that some people I know have that option. Of-
Yeah, they have the question in their mind and say, do I need to work? If the partner agrees, say you don't need to work, we can just run a good family, and I earn enough. I think that shouldn't be a problem. But that is a problem because a lot of people wanted to have some extra money so they could enjoy life, travel more, but also like invest or buy or spend. Expenditure is also something, right?
what's good about Denmark, which probably isn't so profound in other countries outside of Scandinavia, I don't know about the rest of the world, but it's what I hear, is that people are concerned how much they pay in tax. And that's a really important question to know, is that the more you work, yes, the more you earn, not maybe the more you work, the more you earn, the more you pay in tax. But you also need to inform yourself, where does this tax go? And in Denmark, you have free healthcare. So that means a lot. And regardless of the job situation for the spouse, it's much better, especially if you have children, if both of you have good contracts where you have good social security. So this is what I think is the attractive part for a lot of people, is the social security that you have. And also making sure that live with less now so you can have more later. So always think of, if you're not good in saving, then add a little bit of extra to your pension fund. And a lot of people I meet, they're like, why should I save for my pension? That's some people I meet, they don't even have a pension. And me coming from Sweden, I'm like, oh my God, that's a no-no. So the what I would say the message would be to people who are coming with their partners who have a job or they don't have a job, don't care so much about the status of the job. Be proud that you also have a possibility to work, even if it is in Netto. Like, who cares? Go get a job, go there. And what I love about Denmark is you can go up to a person and say, hello. Of course, not everyone, but I've done that. I've come up to people, I've gone up and said, hello, this is me, this is my CV, hire me. And when you get your own paycheck, then you get the possibility to save for retirement. And the earlier you start to earn money, the more of a bigger cushion you will have for retirement. So the message would be, just go and get whatever job you want, because every job will teach you something. I've worked in many different areas, worked a lot in the hospitality business, and I meet a lot of people. So the people I met 10 years ago when I was working in Radisson, today I talk to them as friends. Other people that I've met through hospitality have helped me find jobs. So Denmark is such a small country that who you know will probably get you the job rather than your CV. And that is the truth. And that is a harsh truth, but the more people you spend time with, and I have a really good friend that's called Nisha from Career Club Denmark. She has built her network and helped women thrive from all over the world in these situations. And everybody I meet, regardless it is from our speaker club or improv or somebody in my friend group, wherever I meet them, I refer them to Career Club Denmark, because they help women find this community where they can even talk about all these things that I cannot answer a question of how it is to come with a spouse and not have a job for a longer period of time. But like our common friend, like I mentioned before, she now works, she's got a job. It's not a full-time job, but it's a job towards somewhere where she's going. And that was not where she was going 2 years ago. So being open to change and mingle and network and learn the language and be open to change. That would be the three things I would say.
I absolutely never thought nor imagined getting to this place of inviting guests to my home for a podcast. And here I am. It's a dream where I feel like I'm just getting started. If you enjoy what we do here, please join by hitting that subscribe button. Here's a promise I'm going to make to you. I will do everything in my power to make the show as valuable as possible. Thank you so much. Back to the episode. And I agree. With network comes options where you people refer to jobs and say, "Hey, I found this interesting job. Your profile suits better. Why can't you just apply?" And there's also people who could recommend people within the organization. I think it's a lot of people also reached out to me when they find an opportunity in my company that I work for. Keeping that conversation aside, let's walk into what you do in Ziko Yoga, where so basically, who are looking for yoga or relieving stress? It could be many factors, right? Why should someone come and focus on yoga, train them, and focusing on mindfulness? Why are people coming to you, and who are these people basically, and where are they from?
The people who come, it depends again. The ones who tend to come to me in one-on-one sessions, they are the ones who are sort of in a crossroad, and they sit and they're stuck. So they don't know how to move forward. It can be one session, it can be 2-3 sessions, depending on what it is that they're stuck with. And the individual sessions, they help with the mental clearing, with the blockages of them to understand. And I tell everybody who come, please don't expect me to push a button and then you're solved. Because the body is complicated, and maybe it's some deeper things that you need to talk to a therapist about and not your yoga teacher. That happens a lot. So what I can help with is clear the path with the help of breath work, different breathing techniques. We can also do something that the audience will have the possibility to listen into at a later point, which is a long meditative sleep. It's in the nidra, yoga nidra. It can be that they want to get in shape, or that they want to relieve stress with poses, relaxing poses, or they want to build muscle and then they want more balance and strength and core muscles. So it depends on, there are different packages to who they are. I've had a burnt out CEO who came and needed help, and he's tried very different things, but he said, okay, let's try this. You came into my mind because you, and then I said it, and he just sat there on my floor, and he was like, Avasa? So say, I mean, it's it? Like, there's not more? And they're like, So what I can help with is to come to clarity point. But what I stress is that the work needs to be done from the inside. If you don't accept that, if you just want a quick fix, then there's many people out there. But I've also had clients who struggled with their reality, that they need to actually do some work. Work takes time. Like the previous conversation about finding the right thing, maybe the right thing isn't there. So what do you do in the meantime while you wait? Then we have group classes. Group classes are happening every week in AMA. Then the focus is what the group is doing. But then you can also have individual group where you do it for a day. So it depends. When I taught in 2019, I taught one weekly class for a company. Then it was those particular people who came, and they had one focus point. But yeah, it depends on how much time you're willing to spend and what do you want to change. What is it that it's your problem area right now
The problem area that I find most often times is that I'm not able to understand this because I've never been in that situation. But I've often hear in DM saying, "I'm stressed because I couldn't find a job. I'm stressed because about my PR." There's a lot of things that non-Europeans, especially when they are bound by a contract in Denmark, scares, afraid of, or maybe the time bound contracts, right? So they have some different stresses, and they also seek sort of a temporary solution by going and meeting people, networking, but that doesn't really solve the problem. It is just like, okay, now I spoke to someone, I got a temporary relief, doesn't mean anything that they have completely eradicated. And I assume that comes with systems, setting the systems right. Do I do the routine right? Because that changes whole the entirety of how you see job seeking or finding opportunities on the way. Because when you're mentally prepared, when you're clear in what you want to seek, then I think opportunities are bound. And that's the thing that I often tell. I think you shouldn't look negatively on not being able to get hired. Be a bit more optimistic and try to see from the other side on how you could be relevant. And do you do any of these sort of, let's say, group sessions where you train people to build up that muscle, build up that skill to also calm, focus on calming them, and or some sort of sessions where they prepare for, hey, let's start fresh with this month where we do this type of yoga, and then you feel that you will also incorporate in your daily life or something. Is that a possibility that you do that?
Every Monday, I teach at 6 o'clock. I teach hatha, and hatha is more like a strength focused. And on every Monday at 8, I teach yin. And yin is total opposite to hatha. Both are hatha, but the hatha is the balance between the sun and the moon. And yin is longer poses that you hold on the floor. But both have different elements. When I went back to teaching again last year, we started, for instance, with going through the chakras. And then the classes were according to the chakras. So it depends on every class, they have certain elements, and then we build upon that. But again, I can give them homework, but if they don't do it, there are people who come back with the same thing, and they can come back year after year. And all you can do, like my teachers say, you can give them the information, but they will still keep coming back. Then there are some people, you give them one class, and they're like, yes, got it. And then they run off, and you see them in half a year, like, wow, you changed. So there's no simple answer other than, do you believe in it? Do you want to do it? And for me, it's yes, no. If you don't believe in it, I also say, if I'm going through some things and I've seen that the class is really not connecting with it, I say, before we start this, the door is there. Welcome to leave if you don't feel comfortable, but if you want to try, if you want to experience and see how it affects you, then stay. So yeah, it depends. It all depends. But if when I had workshops before, then there were certain elements, and then the people know what to go into. But nowadays, often they don't know what to go into. But they know that they will be securely guided, and they will wake up happy. So when they leave, I know they will come back.
Now let's take the other situation where people don't find jobs, people don't find the opportunity they deserve, or they're struggling for that. Is it an option where people could think of what you are pursuing, entrepreneurship, starting a business? Is that doable, or does it require a lot of steps or processes involved? How is it difficult, or is it easy to start an enterprise that you have chosen to do, like the one that you already have?
Is it doable? Definitely.
Mm.
Is it easy?
Mm.
No.
And why?
Everything that's worthwhile,
Mm.
I don't think comes just like that.
Mm.
And when it does,
Mm.
it means that it comes because you know that you wanted it. You know, you worked for it, you let it go, and then it comes. And then everybody's like, oh, you make it so easy. But it's always you have a choice. If you choose your 9 to 5 and you got that, then you do have to have some investment time in that. But maybe you focused all your energy on that, you don't have energy for your extracurricular thing.
Things.
But I say that it's definitely possible because there's so many entrepreneurs in Denmark.
Is
There
it?
are
Okay.
so many opportunities with erhvervshuset.
What does that mean?
It's erhvervshuset.
Let me try to
It's
decode it.
the business Copenhagen business Denmark. Like it's a business house.
Okay, Evas is
From
business and Husul is the house.
house. So it's the business house, the municipal business house that I know at least every big city has. And they have courses. They have courses on accounting, on marketing, on every kind of courses for free. And when you go to them and you help them, I started my business many years ago, so maybe they have changed or they have changed how they do, or maybe it was also part of the international house. Erhvervshuset. So there is the structure for people to build their business, and also they have so much. You just need to learn how to read. And you also need to learn how to read between the lines. And if you don't know, then you go and ask someone. Because there are also tax brackets. If you are starting up and there is a tax bracket on a certain amount, they might have moved since I started. So there are so many benefits. And they're also advice. They have legal advice, they have business advice, they have mentors. So it is doable.
And the ecosystem is also supportive to be able to establish a business at any scale.
Yes.
I assume that the capital shouldn't be a problem if that is the case. Like let's say for example, people who have a good product idea, let's say jewelry or fashion design or designer wear clothing or something. Maybe that involves capital. But a consultation or service providers, maybe they need just a space to rent. Shouldn't be that of a deal.
I would always recommend to talk to your network and talk to people who can give you estimates on how, if talk to somebody who, if you want to go into a jewelry business, talk to a jeweler, talk to people both who've been there for a couple of years, but also people who are starting up. So you get some feedback, because when you zoom into one business, for instance, you just want to sell diamonds and gold, then you see all of a sudden there's so many jewelry stores. Or if you want to set up a coffee shop, there are so many coffee shops. And the rents in Copenhagen, if you think housing rents are expensive, like rent for your business is even more. So you need to, of course, have capital. But if you're selling services, or if you're a consultant, then it's easier. And you can get your CVR, the number for the registration number for taxes for a company. If it's in a regular business, you can get it within a day. So it's easy. It goes fast, but it will go fast when you know what you want.
Okay, point. If I have to ask you a question regarding job, you still chose to have a full-time employment while you pursue your passion, or you have in your current role or current position in life, do you consider yourself completely moving into Ziko Yoga as your full-time career, or do you still want to play and spend your time in finance while performing yoga as a service?
I've had the pleasure of doing both full-time and then full-time, part-time yoga, part-time yoga, part-time job, full-time yoga,
Wow.
and only full-time. So during the past 10, 15 years, I've had the possibility of choice to do how I wanted it. Then 2020 really locked me up, and I had to think, what is it that gives me joy? And what do I want? From 22 to 23, 24, so for about 2 years, I didn't teach.
Okay. And why was it?
I got a new job
Okay.
that was outside of Copenhagen. I
Ah.
live in Copenhagen. It was a long commute. And also I had hurt my whole right side.
Okay.
So I was in rehab for about a year and a half. And I realized something was missing. The soulful part of me was missing, and I wasn't complete. And that is my journey. I wasn't complete without the full time, and I wasn't complete without my yoga. And that is me. It's like I don't feel complete without both. But what I know is that I like my job in finance. I actually love it. And I found a really good place where my manager is a really good manager, and he gives me a lot of freedom to play, to have the possibility to have my company on the side. And that's also something that's new, also within EU law, is that the companies, that's why we have the new rules regarding working hours. So you know where you oblige yourself to your primary company, and then which hours you're off where you don't have to be at that company. And in there you also have possibility to write in your contract that you can work outside of your full-time job. So it's again going back to the reading. But for me, I see yoga as something I will do for the rest of my life. And that's why I take it slow and let it come, because I don't want to rush it. And it's my life journey. I don't consider it as a job. I love helping people, and I love people, and I love teaching. So for me, I don't consider it as a job. I consider it as
Part of life.
yeah.
I think that's also one of the dreams many people have. Like, you find a job that you love, and you also have something that you love doing apart from work. And there's a book that says about that, to find the balance between what you're passionate about, what you want to work for, and also what you do in your spare time. So when you mix all together, then you find the ikigai.
Yes.
I don't know if you read the book, but I
Yes.
love that book. And that synergy is very important. Otherwise, it doesn't fuel passion. And with your initiative, you can perform on your own self, but you also teach, so you get some value out of it by preaching people. But you also, as you said, it is part of your life, so you don't stress about, I'm not able to churn out, let's say, leads to find people, because I consider it as a business opportunity. But you also have a full-time job. And you also mentioned, and which is what is interesting for me, so a person could work as a sideline, do a business by registering a CVR while working full-time in a job. But the perspective is, you can't find a job that is, you can't do a business that is already in your contract, right? Or you can only do a business that is completely outside from what you're working on as a full-time employee. Isn't it right? Or
Generally, yes, but it depends on the company.
so if the company agrees that you find another sideline employment that exactly has the same functionaries that you do in a full-time job.
It depends who you are, I think, because I just met a person who has exactly the same job as the company, and that person's company is doing exactly the same, and it's allowed.
Okay.
I was thrown out from 2 jobs because I wasn't in the job. It was just in the negotiations. I went to the 3rd round and everything was perfect. And they all they asked me was to shut down my business.
Okay.
Even my accountant was like, Zerina, shut the business down. And I looked at them and I was like, do you know I've been working on this dream for half of my life? Invested so much money that I could have bought an apartment, and you want me to just shut the number down? I was stubborn. I'm very stubborn. And I said no. And I've turned 2 medtech companies down because they didn't allow me to have my company. And I said I can pledge not working for the company for a year, but I know this is my life. Like, this sustains my life. When I'm done on my 9 to 5, I go home, I get so much energy when I know I need to change into my yoga clothes and take my yoga mats and go and teach. And that 1 hour or 55 minutes of teaching, how much life it gives me. So I've been bold and turned down opportunities because I was also stubborn. I did not want to do, despite the fact I wasn't making any income. I was in minus for 2-3 years because I didn't have an income on it. But it's a principle. And that's why I've allowed myself to not rush and just take it organically. So just like sourdough bread, it needs time to grow.
Yep, yeah.
So, but it's my choice. If it's a wise choice from a business perspective, I don't know and I don't care, because I know that when I step out from my home and I step on the mat and teach, there's smiles after Shavasana. That's what gives me joy, and they come back, then that's the validation. So there is no perfect way of how to do it, because I don't believe in it. I don't believe in the quick fix, and I don't believe that you can just, because what you will do, you're not a machine. At one point you will burn out. And what do you do when you burn out? What do you do when you're heartbroken? What do you do when you cannot pay the rent? What do you do when you need to move out? So it's all these questions you need to ask yourself. So what is more important? Making your own business right now because it's cool, or going down and taking a job outside of Copenhagen? Oh my God. You know, I spent almost 2 years on building my full-time job to where it is right now, where I can make the decisions and say no. So it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if, as long as you know what it is that you want, that's what matters. But what everybody else thinks and what's the right thing to do or what's the right time to start. My business has gone up and down because I had some other priorities. What do you do? I was not insured. And then I was out of the business for a year and a half. I had to shut my business down. I didn't shut it down with the CVR like the companies asked me to. So technically I could have done it. I wouldn't have lost anything. But what I know I would have lost is myself. And yes, I would say it's tough. When you have your own business, you work more than when you work on your full-time job.
Yeah.
That's what people don't do. People see maybe everything nice and shiny. I'm doing a podcast with you right now. Woohoo! She's so cool. But how long time did that take? How many hours of sitting in the studio and waiting for people where you get to 25 kroners for the person, for per person, and there's like one person showing up, and you spent an hour and a half preparing, you spent an hour coming there, an hour and a half there, and then go back. So, but I think despite the fact, like, if you want to start your own business and you're unsure if that's going to be profitable, make sure that you put aside capital that you know you don't need this year or next year. When you have that security, then go. But you also need to have a backup of a minimum, I would say a buffer of 6 months for your rents and your expenses and all these things. So if you want to do something crazy, like being a yoga teacher or something other that you know don't know what the income is, then have it as a buffer, have it as a hobby. Start small. It's okay to start small. You don't have to go all in. But my my inspiration that put me through both the injury and also especially during 2020 and 21 when I was not sure what I was going to do, I wasn't sure if I was going to survive, was I was listening to Jim Rohn.
Jim Rogan or
Jim Rohn.
Jim Rohn? Okay.
Jimrohn.
Okay.
And Jim Rohn is Tony Robbins' former teacher.
Okay.
I listened to his audiobooks on different streaming channels. And he is also on Spotify, but on Spotify there are no books, it's just clips. But Jim Rohn puts it in a way where he says, don't quit your daytime job. Don't quit your 9 to 5. And even when you're earning twice as much as your daytime job, don't quit it.
Thank you for tuning in to Arun in Denmark podcast. Your support helps me bring more stories and insights to this wonderful international community in Denmark. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more inspiring stories. Until then, take care.